In this video, we're going to demonstrate how to update and delete entities within our database using the entity framework. Pretty straightforward stuff, quite honestly. There's a small gotcha when we get to deletes. We'll come to that in just a moment. So let's go ahead and get started. The game plan is that I'm going to get an instance of an entity object from our database. I'm just going to go ahead and select where customer ID equals 1. And then I'm going to modify some things about some properties and then call save changes. And it should work. We'll test it to make sure. So to walk through that scenario, let's go ahead and start with getting one customer out of our database. And I'll go ahead and wrap this with a first or default. And just so we get in the practice of doing this, I'm going to go if customer is not null, then we can do some stuff. So customer.city, we'll set that to Seattle. This customer moved. That's the scenario here. And the state is Washington. And then we'll call save changes. Now, outside of that, we'll go look for Washington customers. And then we'll just do something like console.writeLine, WA customers dot count. Let's print that out. Okay. So this should modify our customer. That's currently, I believe, we take a look at his data in the database. Customer number 1 is in Dallas, Texas. And now remember, this database, this version of the database will get copied over into our bin directory, our bin debug directory. And so we just get the count back of those that live in Washington. Let's go ahead and open up SQL Server Studio, Management Studio rather. Connect. Now I've already, in the previous video, attached to that instance of our database in our bin debug folder. Let's go ahead and see that the user is now in Seattle, Washington. Okay, so that's basically how you do an update. Again, there's a dirty flag or a way that the entity framework keeps track of changes that have been made for a given entity, and then we'll compose the transacts SQL that's necessary to modify the properties that have been changed, and we can see the results of that. Okay, but that's pretty easy and would work across an entire object graph, not just a single object, but we can update every single object in our database if we wanted to from C# by doing something similar to this. I'm going to go ahead and comment this out for the moment. And what I want to do next is work on the delete scenario. Now, before we delete somebody, we're going to have somebody to delete. And just to keep everything at kind of an equilibrium here, I'm going to go and bring back the code from the previous video where we were creating a new customer and creating an order as well, related order, and saved all that to the database. Then we're going to come back through, and we can comment some of this out here. Let's go ahead and comment that out. Come back through and try to delete that customer. So here we go. Here again, we want to get a reference to that entity, just like we did previously in the update. So from cnd.customers, where c.customer, customer ID equals 3, select C. We're going to wrap that, call a first or default. Then I'm going to go de.customers.delete object and then pass in our customer. I probably should do something like this. just to make sure. Made a big point of that previously here. And then we're also going to call de.save changes. Now we want to see if our customer exists. So I'll just copy that same query, customer exists, and if customer exists is not equal to null, else. So we'll just do a console.writeLine not deleted, and if it is indeed null, then we'll just do a console.writeLine deleted. Okay. So let's save this and run it. And you can see that since we have this open, may have encountered a small problem there. Let's run it again. Okay, so we ran into a problem, and if you take a look at the help, it'll say the operation failed. The relationship cannot be changed because one or more of the foreign key properties is non-nullable. When a change is made to a relationship, the related foreign key property is set to a null value. If the foreign key does not support null values, a relationship must be defined. The foreign key property must be assigned to another non-null value, or the unrelated object must be deleted. And that's really the key to this, is that last phrase. Here's what we need to do, what the problem is. We're going to have, it's not going to allow us to create an orphaned order that has no customer associated with it because it's been deleted from the database. So in order to make this work, what we're going to have to do right before we delete the customer is that we're going to have to delete the order that is associated with it. And I happen to know that there's only one order here. If there wasn't, then we'd have to do a for each loop. In fact, let's go ahead and just do that. For each var order in customer.orders, then we'll call de.orders.deleteObjectOrder. That's probably the more proper way to do that. So now it's going to delete every order associated with this given customer, and then it's going to delete the customer itself, and then we're going to call save changes. Let's see if this works. And as you can see, we still get an error because in this case, when we delete the first order from the orders collection, then it changes the orders collection out from under our for each statement when we call the delete object. So what to do in this case? Let's go ahead and stop debugging for a moment. What I'm going to do is copy this out and just call this var orders to be deleted equals to list. All right, so now do that, and now let's see what happens. And it seems to execute. So by removing, we still have a list of individual order items, but it's no longer associated with the object set of orders that are tied to our context. And so now we're able to loop through and know that our to-listed version of our orders collection won't be modified because it's just a reference to the memory, to the spot in memory where that happens. So, you know, if that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, just follow this if you ever run into that issue. Just grab off a to list and then iterate through the list in order to delete an object. But the key idea here is that we have to delete all of the related objects before we can delete the main object that everything's related to beforehand. So that's the little gotcha that I wanted you to be aware of. Okay, so that wraps up this lesson. In the next lesson, we're going to look at stored procedures, and we'll see you there.